Tippy time my damies, Topcat here and welcome back to the channel. Today we are working with our Stasis Hunter. With all the Void, Solar and Arc 3.0 systems finally being released, I wanted to find out all its weaknesses to minimize them and to embellish all its strengths. Stasis builds do two things extremely well. They slow and freeze things, enabling you to control the rate of play, and two, they have the best Fontomite build system inbuilt into their tree that you can get in the game. The Stasis Affinity weapons have slowly been coming out since Beyond Light, and I finally find there is a good collection from Season 18 that we can have a basic toolbox to work with now. If you do like this Stasis build, please consider subscribing. You can always go back and unsub later if you don't enjoy the content, but without further ado, let's get into the build. Firstly, and probably most importantly, we will be using the Grim Harvest Stasis aspect. So defeating slowed or frozen combatants creates stasis shards. These shards grant melee energy when picked up by you and your allies. When targets are slowed, they have slowed movement and slowed ability regeneration and reduced weapon performance. So slowed combatants have difficulty firing accurately. When they are frozen, they are rock solid and unable to move for 5 seconds. They will also shatter upon release of this effect, doing damage to themselves and other combatants around that effect. We will be using the Dusk Grenade. This grenade shatters on impact, leaving behind a field that slows targets and freezes them if they get enough slow stacks whilst in this radius. What is so great about this is it's going to give you a shard per affected target that is killed in here. Unlike our Ordnance Wellmaker, you get the one. This will give you a single shard for every target that is affected by the slow stack, so heaps of performance there. We will also be using the Withering Blade. This is our shurikens. You chuck it out and this will damage and slow targets. These will nerf several times across the season. But if you chuck 2 shurikens, it's going to freeze them. 1 is going to just slow them. But the main thing here is that we do affect them with slow, because once we kill them after that slow effect, it's going to make the shards. And the shards are what is key to making Fontomite work with this build. So we are going to be using the Gambler's Dodge. We just simply dodge, do a deft tumble next to an ad. This is going to give us a shuriken back. We chuck out a shuriken. And if this bounces off targets, it's going to create shards when we kill them. This can repeat off 3 separate targets, which is quite handy. So a lot of things are going to be affected with slow, making more shards to feed us more melee energy. And so you can just keep this loop going pretty infinitely. Being that we're doing a lot of dodging, I'm using the Gemini Jesters as my exotic of choice. Its armor perk, Misdirected. Dodging disorients nearby enemies. Now if there is another exotic you want to use in this place, feel free to do so. I just preferred this as worked well with the motif of our slow, because we want to control the rate of play with this, and that's what a lot of Stasis is about, just easing things down so you can make the choices you want to when you want to make them, and that way it's just a lot easier to farm for those shards to keep your weapons stacked up with Fontomite as much as possible. Particularly when I'm soloing things and you ever get in too deep, just do a little dip dive, dodge and dodge, and a dive and another dodge and another dive, and everything's going to be disorientated. You can slow it, get those shards, get your powerful gun in your holster. So there are 2 main ways we're going to set up our armor for our Fontomite. Firstly, we're going to need elemental shards. So stasis shards count as elemental wells for us, and elemental time dilation. This is just going to allow us to stack up our Fontomite build. So we've got a Fontomite on our helmet, a second one on our gauntlets, and a third one on our chest piece. So with this compilation of mods, we're going to get our Fontomite buff of 25%, and we're going to keep this for a 20-second window. And that's really good because we can just easily keep on making more shards, more crystals. Whenever something is slowed or frozen, we just get that shard and get that Fontomite working for us again. And this is where I think it's beneficial having a Fontomite build over a high energy fire, because you lose that buff the second something is dead. So there are many great stasis weapons we can utilize to make this build super strong. The Riptide Fusion Rifle is one of the most dominant DPS weapons in the game. It's pretty much a stasis version of the Cartesian Coordinate, which has been well received for many seasons now. It has Vorpal weapon on this fusion, which just makes it so deadly. I've run mine with auto-loading holster, but you can get field prep on it as well. Auto-loading is great for like this run and gun mentality where I'm just sprinting through the field of play and just want to be able to dump some DPS into the boss whilst on the go, pocket it, bring out my risk runner or whatever else I'm using, and just keep on doing DPS without having to worry too much about those reloads. I can just pocket it and keep on with the flow. But because I can run a Quantum Might on this, you know, this beats out high energy fire because I'm running through this gauntlet here, killing ads along the way, and I would be losing my high energy fire, so not getting that ultimate DPS on the boss. However, I also like to use the Vow Fusion Rifle, the Deliverance. I like to use Demolitionist on this as a reload perk, but also has bait and switch on this. Very good for DPS, and I find I tend to use this on something that has a slightly smaller damage window. So I can just knock it with my sidearm, hit it with the sword, and then just unleash some high concentrated fire. I find I tend to use this in encounters like Duality at the end, where you only have a 10-second damage window. This seems to work well with me, but it also works really good in terms of lost sectors and things like that, where you just got to kill that champion and you might be underlight. This seems to put out enough power to demolish them in this situation. For a heavy weapon, we have the Reed's Regret Linear Fusion Rifle with the OG triple tap firing line. You can also get the Vice Stinger on it. I know everyone thinks that Taipan is hot shit right now. Yes, it's easier to obtain, I guess, than this Linear Fusion Rifle, but I still think the Reed's is better, as it is way easier in order to get that Quantum Might working with it, you know. You have to go with the OG Void build and just hope that you get the wells when you want them to get DPS. With this, it's easy, just chuck a shuriken at them, kill the ad, and you have that 20 seconds of delicious Quantum Might damage. It works in many situations. You know, ads are always around, and the fact you just have to touch them with your abilities and then use whatever weapon or ability to finish them off, it just makes this linear so much more practical in order to get that Quantum Might and to take that damage over the top. The old Izanagi and Palmyra B is another great boss DPS long range build you can run for damage. However, I'm kind of stuck in this Reed's Regret, and I'm using the Thoughtless Sniper Rifle. I found this really good for ranged DPS, much like in King's Fall. You've got the Daughters, and then you've also got Oryx, and I found the Sniper quite good. You can go ahead and craft one of these if you so wish. I run mine with Overflow and Enhanced Focused Fire. This is more so because I like soloing things, and I find this combination works best for me, but you can mix it up depending on the perks you like. But the fact that it's stasis alone, pretty easy to get it Quantum Mighted up, and that way you can just do that really good damage straight away. Unload everything that is, keep that focus fire going hard and strong. It's got a good time window on it, and then just flick back over to your linear, and goodbye Oryx. Sorry TKS, you missed out. The second way that we can run our Quantum Might build is to run a Supreme Wellmaker. So when you cast your super, this spawns 3 Stasis Elemental Wells. So in my opinion, the optimum way to do this is to have a well with a Stasis armor piece with this mod equipped. That way you always get a well drop at the start of the boss DPS phase, and you can just unleash as much as you want. You can see here with the Quantum Might build, just absolutely unleash DPS on this boss here. But you can also equip it to yourself as well for your build. It's going to shorten the time to 15 seconds, but in situations like this, you know, where you only got a short damage window, there's not too much of a bad deal anyway. Our super, the Silencer Squall, definitely has some pros and cons. So Silent Squall, you pretty much chuck out a massive stasis tornado. One of them is going to slow and the other one is going to squall. So it just does DPS, but not a lot of DPS. But the main thing here is that we're getting those wells given to us, so we can just pump out our Quantum Might. And a lot of things like the raid weapon damage is key over super damage anyway, so this kind of does work for us. in certain regards. I'll show you here on this ogre. I chucked my tornado out and I'll just show you how weak the super is by itself in terms of DPS. There you go, 143, that is pretty much bottom of the barrel in terms of super DPS. But the super is good in encounters like this where there are lots of ads roaming around. I've just chucked that tornado in the corner and I just let it go, do its thing and destroy everything. See, it's pretty much looped back this way and it's going to just clear the room by its own design, just hunting down enemies, both disabling them with the slow and then killing them with the freeze attack. So it is good in certain regards, but I wouldn't really use it for DPS. It is clear out the room, get yourself your Font of Might, so you can just unleash some more damage with your weapons from safety. The first of our programs we are using is Whisper of Conduction. Nearby stasis shards will track to us. This also gives us bonuses to resilience and to intellect. But just pretty much imagine this as your Seeking Wells mod. It's just going to drag those shards to you, making it easier to get that Font of Might bonus. And if you look at it, just saving that extra spot, you no longer need the Seeking Wells, and that way just freeing it up so we can get more Font of Might stacked on our class. This is one of the reasons I believe that the Stasis Font of Might build is the best, because it's just kind of built it into the tree itself. We'll also be using Whisper of Durance, so slow from your abilities lasts longer. For those abilities that linger, the duration will also increase. The Whisper of Durance is going to help all our abilities out. For one, when we chuck a shuriken or something, it's going to increase that slow time, that it's kind of inactive and just has poor aim assist. It's also going to make things that get trapped inside that grenade stay trapped for longer. So even if they've got enough health bar and they don't die by the first shatter, they're going to get trapped up there a second time, allowing you plenty of time to finish them off. Now, if you use a Zephyr, the perk here, Cold Steel Powered Sword hits slow targets. If you double this up with, say, your Squall, you're going to get those stacks faster. And same thing with the grenade, so it's always good to get down a grenade, get that slow stacks on there, and that way when you're doing your heavy attack, you're going to get that freeze effect sooner. So this works both with the grenade and with the super as well. I'll quite often wait till other ads come out before I drop the super out there, because that way I can kind of slow and pick off everything else. But it's very good in terms of just getting those slow stacks turned into freeze stacks. So I like this Whisper of Durance perk very much. Now our second aspect, Touch of Winter, is a grenade aspect. So this is going to increase our Dusk Grenade. Increases the slow field size and creates a small stasis crystal in the center of the impact. We will also be using Whisper of Torment, Stasis Fragment. You gain grenade energy each time you take damage from targets. So this is quite useful in times of stress, you know. So I'm going to come up here, dunk these moats. I'm in here solo by myself, dunk my grenade down. I'm just going to chill here in this grenade and delete this dude. But I get the resist perk from this. And you see, in a matter of seconds, I got another grenade. And that's just from taking damage, I get that grenade recharged stupidly quick. Now, I am running 100 discipline on this. It states 24 seconds. But you saw there with that fragment that I just got it in, what, 6-7 seconds? Whisper of Chains. Whilst you are near a frozen target or friendly fire stasis crystals, you take reduced damage from targets. Now, this is really good, because our Dusk Grenades had that stasis crystal in them, but then we also have several stasis weapons that have a perk called Headstone on them, and this just makes it really good to get that resist perk scattered across the battlefield, right? So I can just put these crystals wherever I want and just get that bonus to resistance. So very good if you're soloing something or an in-game activity, just having pockets of protection as such. You can almost use these much like a Titan Barricade as well, so very useful. My favourite weapon to use this on is the Isoluna. You get this from the Grasp of Avarice dungeon, and I really think this is going to raise up a lot in stock when Stasis Shields do come out. Like, to me, this is already top 4 of hand cannons in the game. I mean, it's overshadowed by things like the Ostringer and the Fatebringer, but it's only marginally less. You know, it's still a very comfortable hand cannon. If you haven't got one, I would highly recommend grinding this out. It is such a beautiful gun, and being that it is the only type of significance when it comes to having Headstone, yeah, it is going to raise an awful lot. If your niche is a little more spray and play, Crate Auto Rifle is a very good option. It has a rapid fire frame. Check a counterbalance on this. You can get 100 recoil direction with the arrowhead brake. I run mine with extended mag, subsistence, and headstone. It also has the buy stinger perk, so it's always chucking bullets into your mag, so you can just keep on knocking those heads off, getting next to those crystals, and just staying plenty resistant. For more spray and pray, there's actually 3 different Stasis LMGs, and these are pretty good. I use them particularly on things like totems, where you just want to hose down a massive ads all at once. You know, it's got good amount of range on it and can just take things out pretty easily, even when you're under leveled, and not have to worry too much about ammo economy. So yeah, a lot better option than say a pulse rifle or auto rifle in a situation like this where there's range and power both required. Our last fragment, Whisper of Rhyme. Collecting a stasis shard grants a small amount of overshield. This will fall off after 10 seconds. Collecting additional shards will bump this up and refresh the timer. This is very vital in in-game activity, so we've got to resist from standing next to a stasis crystal, but then we pick up these shards as well, and additionally going to give us an overshield. Very important, particularly because we have a Phantom Might build, so this essentially we're set up for doing maximum DPS as much as we can. So now with this rhyme, we're going to get overshield, get resist from those stasis crystals as well, so we just get a little bit tankier, and this will just help us play out an endgame that much safer. That shield does fall off after 10 seconds, but I find that you're constantly slowing things with your dust field and your shurikens, so you're always getting those shards back, so you're always getting your overshield fed back to you pretty consistently. So this isn't a worry, and almost better than a void overshield, as you can loop it that much easier. Now most of our remaining mod slots are going to be reserved for things like our ammo finders, which we got space there. I'm running double focusing strike, going to give us class ability energy when we damage with our shurikens, concussive dampener, and thermoshock plating for solar and arc damage resistance. We've got 5 slots here for scavengers depending on what weapons you're using, and I'm running double utility kickstart so we can keep up that Gemini boost that I love for this stasis build. Now before I wrap this video up, there is a new shotgun called the No Reprieve. This is a slug shotgun, and it does come with a couple of nice things. It's got right hook on it, so it's great for melee based builds. We've got lots of shurikens, and it does come with enhanced surrounded. So at base it's doing 52. We then slap on a surrounded mod, and that's going to push this up to 54. Then we go to the altar and chuck an enhanced surrounded trait on it. This is going to push it up to 59. We then get Phantom Might, and this now do 73. I mean, this is just broken escalations of damage, and it actually works quite well in certain situations. Like I'm using it here on Golgoroth. You're up close, nice and tight. There's hordes of enemies coming at you, so it's pretty easy to get both Phantom Might and the surrounded spec to be working in unison at the same time for maximum deletion. I do have a few remaining suggestions that will make your Phantom Might build shine. Something new. Now this is an event hand cannon, so you can't currently get it, but when it does come back up, I highly recommend trying to get a Wellspring Demolitionist one. Very great for ability spam, and it is a nail driver. Definitely, if you haven't already, go out and craft your auto-loading Explosive Light Palmera B. Very good, particularly with the Izanagi. And the Lingering Dread from the Duality Dungeon, very good. Can get both Blinding and Spike with auto-loading Bauble. Everything you want in a Breachload Grenade Launcher packed into one, and it is Stasis. Anyway, my damies, that is our Phantom Might build for today. I hope this helps, particularly in endgame. This thing delivers heaps of weapon damage at your fingertips. It's very, very easy to use, and I highly recommend you do so. So if you enjoyed it, hit that thumbs. If you are new and you liked it, please consider subscribing. If you've got any questions or suggestions, feel free to chuck it down below. But until next time, tippy tie, my damies. What a tie.
Bottom of everything, he's the most tip-top.